And undocking has occurred 7:02 p.m. Central Time, 8:02 p.m. Eastern Time, while the station was flying just over the eastern part of Mongolia. So the Soyuz TMA-18M spacecraft undocked from the International Space Station. Mikhail Kornienko, Scott Kelly, Sergey Volkov on their way home.
TC7 is illuminated. Copy. Have a good day.
So as you can see, that initial rate of departure, very slow, backing away at only 1/10 of a meter per second. It's going to continue at this pace until it's about 50 feet away from the International Space Station, at which point it'll execute the first of 2 separation burns. The first one will be an 8-second firing of the engines on board the Soyuz craft to begin opening that distance. The second will be a 30-second burn. Those firings should come within the next 2 to 3 minutes. Descending under parachute, you can see the thick cloud cover in the overcast sky, but a beautiful light. The Soyuz landing just a few hours after sunrise in Kazakhstan. This again a recorded view from one of the Russian search and recovery helicopters. And so at this stage, the Soyuz capsule was well under its main parachute, a massive parachute designed to slow the Soyuz down from a descent rate of 80 meters per second to just 7.2. The parachutes being initially opened at an altitude of about 6.6 miles. You can see the capsule descends upright. Occasionally will land and roll over on its side, but in this case the capsule landed upright, so it made things easy for the search and recovery forces. And again, you can see the thick cloud layer on the lower deck that the Soyuz passed through before its landing. It's actually fairly similar to the landing just 1 year ago in March, when NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore touched down in Kazakhstan through some fairly thick clouds. The search and recovery forces finding the Soyuz today much quicker, though, getting to Kelly, Kornienko, and Volkov in a very expedited fashion. All 3 crew members out of the Soyuz within 30 minutes. So definitely getting some favorable weather. March, usually one of the most dynamic in terms of weather, one of the most difficult when it comes to Soyuz landings, so this definitely a very successful landing today. But a lot of the samples still on board the International Space Station. They'll be coming home in a SpaceX Dragon. And it looks like we are getting another feed. This again recorded video from those Russian Mi-8 helicopters, which you can get a great view of one right there, that were circling around the landing zone prior to touchdown. There you can see the detached, or the medical tent being set up, and there the parachute which slowed the vehicle during its final descent. And there, all of the initial teams already around the capsule.
Has been erected around the descent module, and search and recovery and Energia personnel are now working to open up the top hatch of the descent module to begin the extraction of the crew. Typically, for a Soyuz landing where the vehicle is upright, the Soyuz commander, Sergey Volkov, in the center seat, would be extracted first, typically followed by Mikhail Kornienko, the board engineer, on the left side, and then finally Scott Kelly. We'll see how that order goes.
If you want, stick on the line, and once we get this video back, we can rope you back in, and if not, we can... Oh, and Rob, as I speak, we have video, and we have you dead center in it. So hopefully we'll be getting the crew out soon. How are things looking with preparations at the capsule?
The ladder, of course, has been erected. There is a horde of news media personnel surrounding the spacecraft. I believe they're about to hoist Sergey Volkov out of the top hatch of the Soyuz vehicle. This process should take just a few minutes, and if you have video, you'll be seeing right now that Sergey Volkov, the Soyuz commander, having completed his third flight into space, 548 days in space on 3 space flights for Sergey Volkov.
And indeed, we are seeing him come out of the capsule, the Soyuz commander, the first one out. And as Rob was telling us, his father standing there, excited to welcome his son home.
And Dan, they're helping him down this little slide ladder, if you will. He'll be carried into the center seat of the 3 comfortable chairs that are set up in front of the cameras. He'll be getting a very clear view of that. And the recovery personnel is now bringing Sergey Volkov to the center seat. As you know, he was launched back in September with a visiting crew, a Kazakh cosmonaut and a Danish astronaut who spent a short time aboard the International Space Station.
Careful, please don't stand in front of the camera.
And we see Volkov now in the center seat, the first one successfully removed from the Soyuz capsule. And of course, next up is going to be Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko, the 2 one-year crew members returning after 340 days in space. And so we'll look out for them. So, Rob, I want to thank you for calling in, giving us an update. Have a safe flight back to Zhezkazgan and a safe flight back to Houston, and we'll see you here before too long.
All right, Dan, pleasure. I'll stay on the line if you want to come back to me, but it's your broadcast, so have a good one.
So one crew member out, Sergey Volkov in his seat, getting the initial medical checkouts now. We'll stand by to see who gets pulled next, either Mikhail Kornienko or Scott Kelly.
Are you ready? Ready.
And Dan, I don't know if I'm still enabled here. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, Rob, we still got you on, so
okay.
feel free to jump in.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dan. They are in the process of gently hoisting the second of the 3 crew members out of the top of the hatch.
And we're standing by. We can see the crew members back. Any idea who it is yet?
I'm trying to get into position to see. Scott Kelly back on Mother Earth after 340 days in space, Dan. Thumbs up.
We got a great view of him now. The folks here in Mission Control Houston letting out a very big cheer. Scott Kelly, as you just said, returned after 340 days in space. NASA's one-year crew member conducted a lot of very important research back down on Mother Earth, back down in Kazakhstan, where he launched from just about 12 months ago.
With the camera. Over here, please.
And so much like Volkov before him, Kelly now being loaded over into his chair.
you.
Dan, I'm going to make my way over to the other side of the chairs here where Scott is.
Everything.
Okay, sounds good, Rob. We'll stand by. We can see the NASA team. You can see Sean Fuller there just behind Scott Kelly. He's the director of all the NASA operations out there in Russia.
Asking everyone to step back. Your colleagues will step back. Step back and don't interfere.
And we're seeing a big smile from Scott Kelly there. You can see just to his right, Steve Gilmore, Scott's prime flight surgeon for his year in space. No stranger to cold landings in Kazakhstan. This is his 4th mission, his 2nd landing in a Soyuz. 520 total days in space across his space flight career. 340 days in this historic year in space.
And then Scott just looked at us and said, the air feels great out here. I have no idea why you guys are all bundled up.
With temperatures hovering right around freezing, I imagine you guys are thankful for your jackets, but for somebody who hasn't had the breeze on his face for almost a year, I bet it feels pretty great out there right now. And back over at the capsule, we can see Mikhail Kornienko, the other one-year crew member, outside the capsule getting ready to get carried over as well.
Do you work for Mission Control?
And Dan, Scott Kelly absolutely relishing the fresh air out here in the mid-morning hours here in the southern steppe of Kazakhstan. Breathing deeply, enjoying every second of his return to Earth.
And we just saw Mikhail Kornienko go down the slide. He's getting carried over, so he'll be joining you shortly as well. So with that, all 3 crew members out of the Soyuz capsule safely down there on the steppe in Kazakhstan.
1-year mission, guys. I'm fine. Okay, yes, we covered him up, wrapped him up. How are you?
And so, Rob, now all the initial medical checkouts are about to begin. Is the medical tent set up there on site?
And yes, it is. It's directly behind us, Dan.
Move away.
As is the custom, they will carry each of the crew members one by one. This short distance, it's about a 50-yard haul to carry the crew members into the medical tent, where they will, as I said earlier, have their SOFA launch and entry suits removed, and then have an opportunity to undergo about an hour to an hour and a half worth of field testing, which is the first critical biomedical measurement of all of their biomedical functions. That will be the initial test of their response to a gravity environment for the first time in a year.
Hard landing while we exercise there on a regular basis. Yeah. Is it the old tradition?
And then very swift work made by the Energia folks. Sergey Volkov, just a few feet away from me. His father is kneeling down right next to him. What a picture that is. Father and son, cosmonaut heritage that has spanned several decades of Russian space history.
Everything as we were taught.
And we just had a great view of that. Saw Scott Kelly with a satellite phone in his hand, assuming making a call to friends and family, eagerly awaiting his return here to Houston, just about 24 hours away or so from now. A lot of smiles from all 3 crew members now safely out of that Soyuz vehicle.
Well, you see, just let me go to sauna down here and then I can fly again. Alexander, hello. Please pass along our thank you.
Right now we're looking at Mikhail Kornienko and the other crew members, where you can see the various flight surgeons and nurses out there with the search and recovery forces affixing a number of devices just to get those initial medical readings from the crew members.
Would you like to hold an apple? Not to eat one. Oh, this is heavy.
So again, there you have it, all three crew members safely out of their Soyuz craft. Mikhail Kornienko there on the left, Sergey Volkov in the center, and on the right, NASA astronaut Scott Kelly back on Earth after 340 days in space. And as we've heard Rob detail, the science gonna pick right back up for these three crew members in just a couple of minutes once they move into the medical tent and begin those field test studies. All three crew members spending about an hour to an hour and a half doing various functional tasks to see how well they're able to perform shortly after being reintroduced into the gravity environment.
Thank you very much, everyone who worked hard and helped us. I'm used to more answering questions, question answer session. I can go ahead and ask me questions. I can answer. Yes, they do send apples up there, but very few cucumbers available. So the previous time I asked for cucumbers, and this time for your channel I was taking videos. Actually today, well, actually yesterday. Don't go away. We're going to take a photograph. No, they said wait for the mission control guys. 2 minutes. Let's switch. Everything is normal. All the equipment worked correctly and worked well. They're going to take measurements. Yes.
And Dan, if you're still with me here at the landing site, they will be starting the process of hoisting the crew members one by one to bring them into the nearby medical tent just a moment or two from now. I must tell you, Scott Kelly may be renamed Spaceman Extraordinaire here. He is looking hale and hearty, and even uttered to his lead flight surgeon, Dr. Steve Gilmore, not much different than it was 5 years ago. So good news as the search and recovery forces now lift Sergey Volkov toward the medical tent, and in short order will be followed by both Scott Kelly and Mikhail Kornienko. But a jubilant atmosphere here in south central Kazakhstan with the return of the one-year crew and Sergey Volkov.
And thank you, Rob, and that's great to hear. We saw Volkov make his way off, and Kornienko not too far behind him.
Let's move to
there at Scott's front. You can see NASA Chief Astronaut Chris Cassidy there in the black jacket. Just behind him, Joel Montalbano, Deputy Program Manager for the International Space Station. Here another view of Mikhail Kornienko, the Russian cosmonaut who also just wrapped up the year in space along with Scott Kelly, being carried over to the medical tent now. All three crew members will undergo some more medical exams before beginning the field test study. You can see the tent in this view. It's the orange inflatable tent there just on the left side of the camera screen. And here's Scott Kelly making his way over too, as Rob reported, looking quite hale, quite happy to be back on Earth and not at all affected by the cold weather down there in Kazakhstan. Happy to be breathing some fresh air down on Earth after 340 days in space.
Could you turn the... guys, our U.S. colleagues will say something.
Here NASA's Sean Fuller.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here on the steppes of Kazakhstan once again watching the Soyuz landing. The crew's looking great. Sergey, Misha, and Scott, they're looking wonderful. Scott and Misha, of course, completing their 1 year in space, and they're looking good. This is a great step for us forward as a partnership, moving ahead to explore beyond low Earth orbit. We're happy to have them on the ground here, looking great. Okay? Great. Zheneva Palatka.
And that again, some quick words of congratulations from NASA's Sean Fuller, the director of the Human Spaceflight Program Russia for NASA out there, the prime coordinator of coordination between our two space agencies, responsible for getting many of the NASA folks who are there on the ground right now, all of the medical personnel and others that were responsible for getting Scott Kelly out, conducting all of these medical checks, doing the field tests there on the ground in conjunction with their colleagues from the Russian Space Agency.
And Charlie will see him in Houston.
Best regards to Charlie.
Yes, yes.
They're going to see him on 24th.
That's right.
He's coming to
Yes, he'll be in the
Congratulations.
24th to 25th. You guys will be both here at Star City for the return ceremony.
Oh, yeah.